So basically, that's what they did. Patrick Duffy was directed to turn around in the shower and say, "Good morning." Hold the soap out after a pause, a beat as it's called in the industry. Hold the soap out and say, "Lux Soap, the only way to wash," or some promotional line like that. But in actual fact, when they created the episode for the beginning of the next season after the dream scene, so it's season 9 was the dream scene, so I believe season 10, episode 1 then, had Pam getting up out of bed, real upset, then getting confused and puzzled because she heard the shower running, walks to the shower in the bathroom, sees through the shower door that there's a man apparently in the shower, opens the door, it's Bobby, he turns around and he says, "Good morning." And they cut the whole thing about the soap out for Dallas. So there we go, Bobby was alive. It goes into the titles, you know, and then the next scene we see is Pam sitting on the bed, upset, confused, yet strangely happy. Bobby comes in and saying, "What's wrong, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." It was just ridiculously humorous, but anyway. Fans were delighted to see Patrick Duffy back playing the role of Bobby, but the entire dream sequence season did blow it out of the water for other characters, namely the sister show Knots Landing. Apparently an entire season of that must have been a dream, because it had the character of Gary, who in episode... Now this isn't Dallas, remember. This is an entirely different show, Knots Landing, but it's a sister show of Dallas in the same universe. And Gary is upset about Bobby's death, and Bobby leaves him something in the will. It's just so ridiculous, and it carried on until the following season of Knots Landing, when they realised that Dallas were bringing Bobby back to life. No character from Knots Landing ever mentioned the Dallas connection ever again. They literally cut ties with it. They thought it was ridiculous. Season 10 with Bobby's return was very welcome, but season, I think, 11 to 14 started slipping. JR had a long lost son, 19 years of age. He marries a young 25-year-old. Bobby gets a new wife because Pam had a car accident and she had severe burns all over her face and body, so she vanished. Bobby gets a new wife, April, and on their honeymoon she got shot to death with machine guns. And just the whole storyline, they were trying to make things, they were trying to make events and storylines to interest the audience and keep them hooked, but none of it worked really until season 14, the ultimate last 2-episode finale, where JR apparently was visited by a higher being, or an outer body experience being. We didn't know quite what he was until the very end. He was either a ghost, an angel, a spirit. Nobody really knew, and he showed JR, the character, what life would be like had he not lived, because JR was considering to kill himself. Kind of It's a Wonderful Life story, sort of, but with a twist, because it made for different storylines. We saw an interesting time of what it would be like had JR not existed. I'm not going to go into the details, there's too much. But it did climax, spoiler alert, it did climax into we the audience realising when it was all over, when all the presentation was over, and JR says, right, I value my life now. What happens? Are you going to go back up there? And he turns around and says, what makes you think I'm from up there? And his eyes go all yellow. The camera pulls back on South Park from outside, and we hear a gunshot. So we think that JR has killed himself. And that is the way the final series of Dallas ended. So we then see 2 TV movies in the 90s, and then it returned again in 2012 for a different twist of a TV series. I'll get to that in another podcast. Now, the producers stated that they did not know how to bring back Bobby in the Dream season, as it became called, season 9. They didn't know how to bring him back as Bobby Ewing, and because the suggestions with the panel of writers and producers and stuff, the suggestions of bringing him back as an evil doppelganger, an evil twin, somebody pretending to be Bobby, but not the character Bobby Ewing. How do we bring him back? And they made statements that the dream, the whole dream idea, Pam's dream, was the only way. I'm a writer, and I wouldn't have done it that way. It's not the only way. There was several other ways to do it. My main idea for it I thought it would have been brilliant. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I was with the idea, imagine season 8, the finale of season 8, or a few episodes before that, the Bobby we think we know that actually died in the hospital in front of all those characters. What if we were to discover that that wasn't Bobby? What if we were to discover, like, Ewing Oil is a very vast, expensive, well-worth, huge company. It at this stage, by season 8, was worth billions, not millions, but billions. They were billionaires. So what if some company, some rival company, and there was a lot of rival companies of Ewing Oil, what if one of them somehow got the best look-alike of Bobby they could find, make sure his hair was the same, make sure everything was the same, make sure he learned about the Ewing family, kidnapped the real Bobby and placed the doppelganger in there to mess around with the company? Because we do see the Bobby, if my scenario didn't work, in Ewing Oil a lot up to before he died. And he was running back between Ewing Oil and Pam's house, because remember, Pam had left him at this stage, and he had just got back with Pam. But what if that wasn't the real Bobby? What if it was a company that tried to get Ewing Oil to be, busted in some way, get the financial records, get everything, try and find a way to defeat Ewing Oil by that unique way? And that Bobby, the doppelganger, he was the one who was actually killed. Okay? And the kidnappers, this is what we can say, the kidnappers, right, for all through season 9, for, we'll say, the first half of season 9, the kidnappers kept Bobby, the real Bobby, because they didn't know what to do with him. Or they didn't keep him, but he escaped anyway. Or they just said, okay, they got rid of him somewhere in the Texan desert. But he was so distraught and well beaten up, he had amnesia. This could have been a story. Or the kidnappers kept him for a while, and then when they released him, he saw on the news that he was dead. That the Ewing family thought he was dead. So he didn't want to go back. He was so confused, and he just lived somewhere else for a while. And then, the beginning of season 10, he comes to his senses, or he gets his memory back. He announces himself at the start of season 10, I am the real Bobby Ewing. I don't know who you think died. They are already experimenting with that with apparently the return of Jock. That was during the dream scene at the end of it, and then they even brought him into the real when Patrick Duffy came back as Bobby in season 10, a guy claiming to be Jock. And that turned out to be a scam. But what if, like, the first 4 or 5 episodes of season 10 could have been brilliant storylines with some of the family not convinced it's really Bobby, and you could have learnt that information anywhere, and Bobby might say 1 or 2 things that fascinated the family. How would you possibly know that? Oh, this is some trickery, until eventually they accept it is really you, Bobby. I know there could have been loads of storylines to entertain the audience that way. Much better than a dream season. So, anyway, that's the end. That's all I have. We will get to another podcast about maybe the movies, because the movies in the 90s were interesting, and of course the new series. But anyway, that's all we have. That's all I have. That's all you have to listen to for now about this TV series Dallas.